Hello and welcome to Table for Five with no reservations. Take a seat at the table for a fresh, sweet, salty, tart, and pleasantly bitter conversation.
Thank you for taking a seat at the table. Tonight, we're going to do a standalone episode. We wanted to touch on our perspective on inclusion. It's a big topic in our lives and in our community as a whole. And I wanted to just start out with the definition of inclusion: the practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those who have a physical or mental disability and members of other minority groups. So we're going to touch on that topic tonight, break it down. Tonight I have Rachel.
Hey.
Jamie.
Hi.
Kim.
Hi.
And Jen.
Hello.
Who we actually have to congratulate also on this podcast because she just dropped a supporter page on her Facebook, Keeping Up with Kaya. So if you follow her, go check out her new supporter page. You can join that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay.
Well, Rachel, do you want to start out with what's your take on inclusion?
It's a funny thing. I think that just to refresh, my daughter Celie is 6. I think big things that play into our perspective is that, well, first at baseline, Celie and I are both adopted. And so I feel like in part we're this variety of person plopped into a different dynamic in a certain way that sort of defined my view on what people need and who people are and what at your core you might need adjusted, just because people are different and like in a small and yet fundamental kind of way. Outside of both being adopted, Celie is autistic and Celie also has fetal alcohol syndrome. Additionally, she was just diagnosed with bipolar. She has anxiety. We deal with some sleep stuff. And so her range of awesome versus struggle, or grace versus inability, or her disability, and how like devastatedly affected my daughter is by some of those things at some times, makes the scale of inclusion really complicated for me. So like inclusion to me isn't about equality. It's about equity. It's about supporting my daughter very little when she doesn't need help and supporting her a great deal when she does need a lot of assistance. I feel like there's parts of her that are 2 years old, like the struggle that she carries and the ability to cope. And there's other parts of her that are really dialed in and wicked smart and ahead of her curve. And I don't know. I mean, it makes it complicated to ask for help and to be able to expect that people could meet our need. With that being said, if it was inclusive, like it still doesn't make Celie capable of going into a place, even if it was quiet enough, even if it was carts that don't squeak by the grace of God, even if it wasn't anybody's else making sound besides her YouTube, whatever. Like, even if all of these accommodations were made for her, she still might not be capable. So it's hard. It's hard for me. I don't know. I just read a thing right now that says diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice be heard. And that's Liz. I'm going to spell this Fosslien. Fosslien. Liz is not necessarily my homegirl before I read that.
Now she is.
It's beautiful, hey?
Yeah. Yes.
There's just so many layers to inclusion. I don't know. It leaves me feeling like it's so situational. And how does the world accommodate that?
Yeah.
So that's my thing. I always say for me, inclusion is not meeting in the middle. I think a lot of people think that's what it is, compromising on, the typical side or whatever side, and then bringing the person in that normally wouldn't be involved. To me, inclusion requires education, which is the hardest part.
Yeah.
People have to learn, and that education has to be base by base. It can't just be all special needs. It can't be all Down syndrome. It can't be all autism. It has to be person by person. And so you're asking a lot of effort of those people. And
when you think of what autism could be, it could be a need for a ramp. It could be a need for an adult size changing table in every restroom in the world. It could mean so many things: dim lights, sound. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jamie. It's just like so many layers.
And even those things,
just that.
Like having adult changing tables. Well, that could help with autism, that could help with people in wheelchairs, that could help with a myriad of like things. So
Mhm.
maybe it's worth it to have that because you're covering a lot of different people and helping them out instead of them having to be on the gross bathroom floor to be changed, you know?
That seems like a goddamn right.
Yeah. And so it's just so messy because it's like everything has to be looked at. You can't just be like, you can't just put a sign on the door that says we're all inclusive, but you can put a sign on the door being like, hey, we have this and we have this, and we're going to try our best to let
Yeah.
you fit in here. Like, I mean, I think a lot of us think of school, and I think when the inclusion thing first came in, it was this big deal. It was like, we're going to put these kids in the classroom. It doesn't work. And I mean, it can work for some kids. And in our case, like my son will be in an autism room most of the time. And then they're going to slowly work him, try to get him used to being in the typical classroom. And then if it doesn't work, but to include my son in school, to have that inclusion for him, to include him in the classroom, he needs his own space. So he needs that other room. It's not like you're rejecting him. He needs a space to stim. He needs a space to regulate. He can't do it around everyone else. So it's a lot more complicated than being like, well, it's just putting everyone together, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When I think of inclusion, I always think of like the feelings behind it. Like I know for a fact, all of us at some point have felt excluded from a
Yes.
situation, you know, like,
Or not honored even.
yeah, the one thing that I think I always float back to is like before your kids are diagnosed and you're trying to get them into daycare, and then you have these conversations with the daycare providers over and over and over again about how your kids aren't fitting into the classroom, but there's no accommodations or changes to the classroom to help them because it's daycare. It's not like a requirement for them. And some do, and I'm not saying all daycares are like this. I'm just saying in the general scheme of like what we've experienced with Montessori school, it's not just daycare, Montessori school, specialized programs, all of that kind of stuff, we felt excluded because we didn't have an umbrella of a label to explain what the development was going on at the time. So when I think of inclusion, I always think of like providing a place where someone feels like they have an opportunity to do what they need for themselves and their children. It doesn't have to be like you have to be all together. If you have a separate room where my son can go decompress and still participate in the activity if he needs to me, that's inclusion. He's going to be starting Miracle League in the fall here, which is great because we haven't had the opportunity to have him do sports previously. And that's going to be all kids who have some kind of, you know, disability or category.
It's the best ever.
Yeah. So, I mean, to
I
me,
could go soapbox on the Miracle League.
And it gives him the opportunity to be himself with people who probably won't have that judgment if it was like neurotypical and other kids. Like it just gives him an opportunity to be himself. So I consider that inclusion. But I also like him on the side of I do want him exposed to being out in the world with other neurotypical peers, and you know,
because he's not going to be in a bubble forever,
right? For his whole life.
So
yeah, so I consider that inclusion too. It's like so hard, like under the umbrella of inclusion, what it looks like. You're right, Jamie. I mean, it's like for the individual, right? Because my son has different skills than my daughter does. She might be fine in one setting and he might not, you know.
Right.
So
well, if you think even about the sports thing, it's like in a typical sport, you know, I think maybe at mine and Tabitha's kids age 5 and 6, like maybe you could do this where you, like we actually kind of did it with soccer where you go try to do like a typical, and like it just, you feel so excluded because like I've talked about this before, like I'm in there with my kid and I'm pulling him off the floor and I'm trying to refocus him and get him to focus on playing soccer. And it would just be nice if in that moment, those parents and those coaches, the coach actually with that was really great, but like the other people around you were just letting him try. And then, you know, I did come to the conclusion, and I could come to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work, but there was just immediately that judgment from the other parents that like, oh, you're messing this opportunity up for my other kids. And it's like, well, just let him try so I can see if he can do it. Because if he doesn't get the chance to try to see if he can do something, then we always are going to have to fall back on the things that are designed for the special needs, which are amazing and great. But it's like, just give us a chance.
We have to be in the world too at some point, you know?
So here's where I'm torn on that. So one, Jamie, when you said meet in the middle, or it's not in the middle, was a little profound because it's like, it's a great way of explaining it. But Tabitha, when you read the actual definition, about inclusion, it also shifted. Yeah, I'll be right there, honey, to pick up your plate from dinner because you won't bring it to the kitchen. It also shifted a little bit of what I thought perhaps it only was. So here's kind of my take on it. My daughter is going into grade 6. Kimmy, you're eons ahead of me, even though I'm so much older than you. But anyway, so I'm a little bit ahead in the school thing. And so I just pulled my daughter from public education. I want to be clear, she had a fantastic teacher, fantastic education assistant, fantastic principal. It's not always been that way. I can tell you now, I'm very open about the school system. It's not designed for our children, not to be negative, Nellie. It's just not, to nobody's fault. They get 30 minutes of autism training. I mean, listen, lady, if that's all it took. Anyway, so, they don't know how to handle. So I have 2 thoughts on that. Here, we don't have special ed classes, so the kids are mainstreamed. And yeah, that's great because like we said, our children have to be around other people. Kaya also learns how to behave properly. She watches other people's behavior.
She sees the modeling.
She sees the modeling. On
Yeah.
the flip side, these children see her toss desks and scream and hit and bite her arm and sob. And did I mention toss desks? I mean, there's been some things, so.
And like evacuating classrooms.
Yeah, evacuate. And that puts her on a spotlight. You know what I mean? She got enough to deal with. And then the inclusion part was, and it stuck out, it'll always stick out to me on sports day. And like you said, Jamie, just let them try. The problem with that was they had her trying in between these races. She doesn't know to run to the chair, sit down, turn around, do 1 lap and get back up. She has 5,000 people screaming at her, Kaya, you're making us lose. This isn't fair. She's on our team. She lost her. She scratched her EA, not the one she had forever. Just clawed this woman. But a parent said it was so heartbreaking to watch. They said you could see her physically starting to crumble. She's like, Jen, the kids were screaming at her. You're making us lose. So how is that inclusive? How is that help my daughter?
Helpful, right?
Right? So
Seeley's
I'm
in a
very torn
level
on it.
3 classroom, and I could not, I am passionate about that, where we're at. Let's lay a foundation. I don't know.
I know it's I don't think there's one it's a one size fits all,
Yeah.
Hell no,
There's
it's
not
not.
one-
You're right. Yeah.
because for some people that's what they want. I mean, they want their children in with the mainstream kids. They want them
And they
in
might
with-
be able to. They might be able
Yeah,
to.
you know what? Kaya
know?
has another little boy that's been in her class for 3 years in a row, and he is literally the definition of high functioning. You would not know this child has autism. You just would never know. He plays hockey, he travels, he's verbal, he's got his friends, he does all the typical things. He just struggles emotionally. But if you didn't know, which I know because I know his mom, but
Yeah.
Nobody knows if the kid has autism. You know what I mean? He can blend in with everybody. My daughter cannot. And it really just, it just we go to dance class and I told you ladies this, the kids look at her like she's a freaking space alien because she's like, hi kids. And, she wants to dance with the kids so desperately, but I pay for private classes because, you know what I mean? So it's inclusive and it's not,
Mhm.
And then
Sometimes
it's
inclusion
yeah.
can be isolating,
very isolating. Yeah.
Mhm.
Plus, it's bullshit that you have to go pay for private.
Yeah.
It is. It's not inclusive because I need that. It's not listen, I'd have my kid in $17 swim lessons, but we have to talk about $45 ones. That's an option. It's nice that you have the option, but it's bullshit.
That's like us. Like we can get funding through our state for those private swim lessons.
I
which-
made those numbers up. If you're in Washington County, just stand out. I'm just saying.
They're way more than that.
Yes, they are.
Like our state will do that. Like you have to apply for a program and blah blah, and you could get funding for that. But it just sucks overall that you have to jump through all this hope to get funding to pay some place for private lessons because we could use that funding for other things. But our kids need to know how to swim.
Well, and it's more paperwork. Oh my God, death by paperwork. Seriously, we have to jump through 17 hoops
Yeah.
to get the
I
swim
just saw your
lesson.
story.
Freaking paperwork is killing me right now. On the opposite side, when a place is inclusive to the needs that you need, not necessarily the definition of inclusion. It has the opposite effect on you as a person. Like when you can do something for your kid that you want to do for them. We just had Nixon's birthday
yeah,
party.
yeah.
It was fantastic. This place was fantastic. His friends were there. It was a 5-year-old birthday party, period.
Mhm.
That was it. We went there, showed up, amazing. All the kids had fun, cake, ice cream, left with presents. It was a 5-year-old's birthday. And not only what it meant to me, but what it meant to the other parents who got to bring their kids to a 5-year-old's birthday party was
Yes.
everything,
Yes.
everything,
And not have to worry.
and not have to worry.
Mhm.
And you walk into a lot of those scenarios like so anxious about how it's going to go. Like, are we going to have to shut this down after 30 minutes? We
Yeah.
might just have to leave, and that's fine. You get used to those kind of things. But when you get this inclusion that isn't necessarily the definition of what everyone thinks inclusion is, possibly, it can really impact your demeanor and how you're feeling at the time and get you through the next 2, 4, 8, whatever months.
Mhm.
Because you can look back
Don't
and
you
be like,
feel like it's the same as the first time you experienced Disney, where you're like, or some sort of like elevated customer service experience like
Yeah.
Disney is, where every need is tended to, or yes ma'ams or whatever. Like it's so impactful that you can
Yeah.
wait until next year to have that level of awesome again.
yeah,
I just sent us a picture of this small business when I don't know where I found this picture on Twitter. I might have
I've
to go
seen it
back in and
before.
edit
Yeah.
this, but it says the company is called My Small World, Bath's famous toy store. Okay. Bath something. It says, we are proudly ASD friendly. We can turn down the music, turn down your lights, give you
Ugh,
space to
love
be you. We never, ever worry about excited play, noises, outbursts, or meltdowns. Let us know what you need and how we can help. And while I'm like, hello, I'm going to Google you and buy some silly toys made of wood that are too expensive. I'm also like, these signs hang all over the Twin Cities and maybe everywhere, but like an artist collaboration did this. We are all welcome here, like rainbow
mhm.
scheme, whatever. Even if that's true, and I know that that's like a prideful LGBTQ, all the rest of the wonderful people that need representation oriented thing, or in the Twin Cities, there's a lot of like race oriented things about inclusion and equity and all of it right now, especially.
Yeah.
I still need to ask for the accommodation.
Yeah.
And as Celie's mom, who is like, call her a snowflake, call her her own self, call her a place on the spectrum. You can honor that she's on too. You can add mental health in it and just let it get weirder. Like there's so many things, but I still need to ask, is that
Yep.
enough? Is that what equity is? Is that the best thing that ever happened? Because at least now people know that they should answer to a mom that asks you to turn down the GD music or.
See,
Yeah.
I do that. I have
I do
no
too.
problem doing.
I do too.
Yeah.
I play the
At a
card.
restaurant, anywhere we
Yeah.
go, I have no
Whatever.
problem saying, "Hey, can you?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I just have to loop
But you
back
still have to
real quick.
ask.
I just have to give a shout out to Pump It Up in Scottsdale. If you ever need a birthday party, please choose that place because
Yeah, you said they were fantastic.
you can have a very sensory friendly experience. Pump It
But
Up.
you made me think when you said about birthday parties and getting invited. Kate, listen, in kindergarten, she got invited to all the parties because it was kindergarten and, but at each party as we got into them deeper, it was, my heart would sink when we get one. I didn't want to go. I would literally want to vomit. I'm not even exaggerating because it
Yeah.
was so hard to take her. All she wanted to do was blow out someone's candles. All she wanted to do
No.
was sing happy birthday.
Open their presents.
Like she
Yeah.
it just didn't work,
Yeah.
And then eventually she just stopped getting invited to them, but
Well, those differences become glaringly apparent the older you get,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because a
Yeah.
3-year-old on the spectrum or not can do something offbeat, can do something
Yeah.
crazy, can open somebody's present. It's not going to be the weirdest thing in the world. But when
Right.
you have an 8-year-old doing that, it's a lot different. And the 8-year-olds are going to take it a lot differently
Yeah.
too. And like, I know for like us specifically, like, because she's nonverbal and she's, on the severe end, like even when they have things designated for special needs, they still are not designed for her.
Yeah.
Like she can't come and do a paint night like on her own. And some of them would be like, they wouldn't even be able to know what to do with her. And it wasn't until we found this dance class, and I went back and forth for months, like
Mm.
I don't think she'd be able to, I think behaviorally she'd be okay, but she wouldn't be able to follow along. Like she wouldn't, people don't really know how to handle nonverbal people because they're not exposed to them that often.
Yeah.
They can't gauge what she can understand and what she can't understand, because she can mask very well with kind of making it seem like she's understanding you when she has
Following
like
along.
no clue what you're
Yeah.
saying. And then we ended up trying it. And in this specific class is an adaptive dance class. So it's all special needs, 13 and up, which you don't see a lot as they get older too. Those things just start like dwindling. And it's all different levels of special needs. So this is sometimes the problem, where it's like, okay, that might be like great for like Kaya, but like Alyssa's just such a different level. But this specifically has an OT and a special education, a teacher who works. She's actually, I think she works in the ABA center now, but before she worked in the school as like a para. So they're very, very familiar with special needs.
Amazing.
But if
Yeah.
it was two regular dance, and it's like, I know we, on one hand, we're criticizing them, but on the other hand, like two regular dance teachers aren't going to be able to handle a class of special needs kids, or aren't going to be able to handle 4 kids in a regular class. Like they're not going to know what to do. What are they going to do if they push somebody down or start screaming or freak out?
Because when you
they're-
say disability, it could be talking about everything from low muscle tone to elopement. It could be
Dyspraxia.
cognitive understanding. I don't
Well,
even know what
yeah.
you're saying. I mean, it's a lot.
You said, if you give Alyssa too many verbal prompts, it confuses her, which
Right.
that does happen with Kaya. She gets upset, she gets confused, she'll get lash out. So my point is, it's never a negative thing at teachers. They don't get the training, so they don't know how to.
Well, and I think sometimes like there's this idea of expectations for experience, right? Neurotypical kids who are going to Disneyland for the first time, or people who are in a dance class, or like for us, swim lessons, like there's an expectation that they're going to take their children to the swim class and there isn't going to be a disruption. So it's on the same side, like their experience is separate from what our experience is, and they're paying the same money to participate in that experience. But I feel like you can tell, like Nixon had a swim instructor, she left now, but first couple classes she was like, oh, I just love Nixon so much, he's so sweet. And Nixon's like an advanced swimmer for his age, because water just period water. And she was always like warm with him. And then like the third class, she let me know that her son or her brother had Asperger's, which I think he was probably diagnosed like 20 years ago when they still had Asperger's. But you could tell with her approach to how she was like modifying the class for him and how she was engaging with him, and her cues to him that she had experience with someone who
Real
needed-
experience.
needed redirection in a certain way. You can't use no doesn't work for us, like all of those things. You could just observe her, and she was like a 19 or 20-year-old kid, who had like this amazing connection with him in the water. It was like a really beautiful thing. But I already had a feeling that she had some type of background or experience, and then it makes sense that she grew up in a household with her brother. So
You can feel it, can't you?
yeah, you can. Yeah,
And I think that's the thing with like inclusion too. It can't just be like a teacher, I mean, obviously amazing. Jesse's soccer coach, it was the same thing. We found out her brother, he was also on the spectrum, so she understood. But like it has to be like within the establishment. Like I get it, like for like a dance studio to have a dance class for special needs, like that's amazing that one has like a special education teacher and like an OT.
yeah.
Mhm.
And these 2 girls, they grew up dancing at that studio. So
See,
they were
that's-
part
Oh,
of
that's it.
they were part of the
Love
studio,
it.
and they went into these fields and they came back. And I'm pretty sure the studio owner has a brother with some kind of special needs. And they actually included the class was included in the recital. So they take the class and they put it in the recital. And let me tell you, there'd be a lot of dance studios who would want to do that.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, it can be a disaster. Like, let's just be honest. Let's call
Those things are so long anyway.
and they
Right.
actually go on stage with them, and they have some of the kids come in and help assist with the dance. The year we did it was the year it was COVID, and so they didn't get to do it. They did it outside, but like Alyssa went up on a stage and she danced. I mean, I never thought
Love
I'd
it.
see the day. I mean, I wasn't even going to sign her up because I felt like I
How?
just didn't know. Like I didn't think
Right.
she'd be able. And they actually
Yeah.
teach them, like they teach them actual choreography. It's simple, but not quite simple. Like I honestly thought they'd be just like waving some ribbons around. Like I didn't think they'd be doing like they teach them actual moves, and she's teaching them things where they have to like cross their body and like move their foot back, like things that like require that motor planning. Alyssa's good at imitating though. That's like a strength she has, so she's able to follow along by watching pretty well. It was amazing. I mean,
Well, and I
Yeah.
think that's
There's
it. So
something
it has to come from up top, and you have
Yeah.
to be willing, like for one, it can cost money. I get that. Like
Yes.
Mhm.
you may have to hire those people who know how, because like I wouldn't want to put my son in a situation with like some young teenager if I'm not there, especially who
Right.
have no clue how to handle him. I wouldn't want to put my son in that situation or her in that situation or him,
yes.
but like finding volunteers, like taking your time to like, oh, I could go to the local school and see if there's a special education teacher who would help run this class with me, or I could. So it's just people have to go out of their way to be inclusive, and I think that's why it doesn't happen a lot. And I get that too. I'm a busy mom. I can't go out of the way for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And at the same time, my kid might completely reject you. My kid might go to the first one and not show up ever again. So you might put in all that effort, and you have to be willing to be rejected by going through all
Yeah.
those hoops to help
Yeah.
be some, like hopefully be included. It's just like a tricky thing, and it's hard.
And then there's the
That
whole
Miracle
financial
League-
aspect of it too, because
Yeah.
now if you're gonna hire these people that are more
Yep.
experts, you're gonna have to pay them more money. In turn, you're gonna have to charge the parents more money. You might not have a whole lot of people come out. You know what I mean? So there's all these moving parts to it.
Yeah.
It's not
That
just
Miracle League has it figured out. We joined the first year this year with Sealy, and we had seen it like in a couple of different places, but there's one locally. Like we've seen it nationwide, just
Yeah.
not maybe everywhere,
Yeah,
right? But
that's
there's
amazing.
some. And Miracle League, like everyone gets on base, everyone scores, everyone, like when the kid uses the T or the not or assistance in any other way, with full help, swinging, with whatever accommodation needs to be made, they like will bat 13 times until they hit one. But eventually you hit one. And when that happens, the pitcher and all the people on the sidelines start rolling balls out to the rest of the kids through the whole baseball park, so that everybody's touching a ball and feeling part of the team and throwing it towards the pitcher or whatever direction you throw the
Amazing.
goddamn ball. Like it's so cool. And I've never cheered so hard. I've never wanted to know the whole roster of a sports team so bad. I've never like I mean,
That
it's
is
just
really cool.
incredible
That
to
is
Yeah.
really
be.
cool.
I'm so
And-
excited.
And the thing is that makes it the same as an OT teaching a dance class is that every kid's parent or supporters or caregiver of some variety is there. If they're not, or if they are sitting on the sideline because watch your kid play ball, like there's volunteers that come because it's one day a week and it's only a short season, and man, people turn out. It's so cool. Like it's so cool. Is that inclusion? It is,
Question
because
mark?
my kid gets to play ball.
Yeah.
It is
Question-
not inclusion
right?
because it is not Little League traditionally.
don't
Like,
have,
it's so weird.
We might have something like that. We don't have Miracle League, but we have in Vancouver, we have Canucks Autism Network, and it's a group, and they do, I think it's like a $40 a year admin thing or whatever. And they release these events every quarter kind of thing, and you register and your top picks or whatever, and it's swimming and it's soccer and it's a train ride or it's whatever it is. The nice thing about going to these things is you're going with all these other families of kids that have special needs. So if my kid loses her shit on the train, there's 25 other kids losing their shit on the train. Do you know what I mean? Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't matter. And I find for myself, I don't get as anxious. I don't feel as anxious going somewhere because I know that she's going to be accepted no matter what happens. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. and you
Seely's
don't-
rounding third place in a nookie with a blankie over her shoulder with her dad holding her hand. Like all of it's fine. It's just
Yeah.
so cool to have moments
Yeah.
among all the experts, all the
Yeah.
parents that get that.
And like you said, it's
understanding.
getting to watch. Like you'll get,
know.
like you get to watch them play a sport. And I often feel that when like she did a dance recital a couple years ago. They actually had her come on stage. Like she actually went to the actual recital.
No.
And right before she went on. This is how, like, I will get her out to her dance teacher. I mean, her dance studio, the owner. They had them turn the lights down slightly. They had them slightly turn down the music. And then they announced before Kaya took the stage to not cheer or start off. I said, oh, no, cheer. My girl loves the
Different
praise.
autism.
Yeah, different.
Not
Bring
this
it
one.
on. But the fact that she,
Hey, Mama.
yes,
Did
Kaya,
Yellow chip.
yellow chips. Yeah, Mama, get them. The fact that they made this
Autism
announcement
podcast.
too. Yeah, sorry guys, she needs her yellow chips, which are Ruffles, by the way.
Mhm.
It was just amazing. You know, when I was
Yeah.
like, kid is on stage at a dance recital, like a kid went before her, a kid's gonna go after, and I got to be that crazy mom. You know, my mom and my
With the red
sister-in-law.
roses.
Yeah, we brought roses, and it was just this overwhelming moment because I just didn't ever think we would get to do something like that.
You
But
and Kim
everything
have
it
me
ta-
ready to sign my daughter
Oh,
up.
man.
I know. Where's those freaking
I was-
tutus?
It's the miracle
So I was
dance.
sobbing. I mean, sobbing. I
Oh.
couldn't even see her. I had tears just pouring down because that's just a moment, you know. She was 24, I think, when that happened. Never, I could honestly say I never thought that would happen. So on one hand, it's like you have to sometimes just get out of your comfort zone and get out
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what you think will work and won't work, and at least try. And sometimes it's not going to work and it's not going to be for your child. But like,
Yeah.
you know, I
And-
think it is important to try.
And sometimes you have to, in order to try, you have to make the advanced phone call and say, we need the music turned down. We need to make sure the doors are closed, or we need whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
You have to do the prep, but in the end, you also get the experience. So it's kind of worth making that phone call to that person, Jim, at the end of the line, who's taking down the notes on what the situation's going to look like.
Mhm. Yeah.
When you get to
And-
see your daughter dance, or you get to have a 5-year-old birthday party, or you get to participate in soccer or baseball or whatever the case may be, make the phone
Mhm.
call and ask, because they might, even if their sign doesn't say we're inclusive, they might change that day for you if you make the call and ask them. I just really think
Jen, didn't you recently find out that Toys R Us had like a particular situation with like some autism training and some accommodations, and you just say the
Yeah.
word in particular there, like,
Yeah,
and
Toys
they're
R
like,
Us
yes,
here.
ma'am,
I
come on
know.
over.
Yeah, they know they're not really around much anymore. But here, one day there was a big lineup, and Rachel, I split up, and I said, my daughter has autism. She cannot wait in this lineup. I don't know why I whispered that. And I think I was trying to avoid the Toys R Us.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
And the lady said, come with me, and just took her to the
Escorted
front of the
you.
line. Yeah, just
Yeah.
escorted us right to the front of the line.
Well, and I think that's something you learn over time as parents to children who are autistic. Like, you find your own voice,
Mhm.
like if
Yeah.
I'm sweating holding a toddler who is autistic, and my autistic 5-year-old is losing
Why
his,
would this sweat always? I hate that.
I'm always sweating.
Yeah, go.
Ugh,
Same. Me
just
too. Sorry to
always
cut
sweating.
you off.
And I shout at you that I need you to open the door. Just freaking open the door. Like, help a
Freaking
sister
door.
out over here. Just
Yeah.
open the door. But I feel like we get our voice more and more as time goes on. You feel more comfortable asking people things. You feel more comfortable shouting at the 16-year-old
Telling.
when he tells you can't go behind the line at the Easter egg hunt, and you do it anyway. you know?
Or the snotty 6-year-old at the park, whatever.
Whatever
Yeah.
the case
Whatever.
may be.
I said this kid's on a power trip. Don't mess this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Follow
it.
Yes.
And like circling back to Tabitha, your son's party this weekend. So we did a similar thing. We had all 3 of our girls, their birthdays are within 30 days. So we rented out this roller skating rink privately, and we invited Alyssa's whole class. And a lot of them had said, I mean, Lexi was turning 1. She didn't have a whole lot of friends. So like we had Kira must have been turning 3. We had obviously family, cousins and stuff like that, but everybody had been familiar with autism, with special needs because of Alyssa. So like it wasn't like coming to a place where people didn't really know. And they had a few of the parents had said, thank you so much. Like we've never been
Yes.
invited to a birthday party before. Like,
Oh.
it was
Ugh, I love
it was
that.
really amazing, and like we were the only ones there, so like we could, if we wanted the music. Alyssa doesn't have a lot of problems with that stuff, so we don't really have to worry too much about that. You're kind of in complete control of like if the music's even on or not, or they do the lights or whatever. But it was, not only amazing for her, but it was really amazing for these other families that had never,
Yes.
Did you
What I
roller
think
skate,
Tabs.
Kimmy?
is, in both those
Oh.
situations, you guys are the ones who made it inclusive. And how
Right.
like the swim instructor, like she knew because she had a brother, and that's really where it comes from. It's like
Yeah.
knowing,
Mhm.
and if you don't know, it's educating yourself on like what, if you find out your friend has an autistic child and you see this happening, being like, okay, where in my life can I, like, whether it's just being like, if you're at a pumpkin patch and there's a kid melting down, just not staring or saying, or just saying, if you need any help, let me know. Or if you like run some sort of organization or work for a company, to be like, hey, could we be more inclusive? Like,
Mhm.
that's where it stems from. It's knowing.
Yes.
And I feel like with more awareness and education about autism in general, like there's more places that are adapting to these things. I mean, I've really seen a change in that over the years, where before it would be like, oh, we have a sensory free hour. It's at 8. Like my kid doesn't go to bed till 5. We're not going to
Yeah.
the trampoline park at 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like it's coming more. I'm seeing it more and more, and people are just more aware. Where I
We
don't
have
think they
grocery
were.
stores here, Kimmy, that have that autism, like sensory friendly hour.
Oh,
it's at,
really?
like 4 o'clock on Fridays, which I mean, it's better than nothing. I don't take her anyway, but she's okay at a grocery store. But yeah, they turned the cashier, the young kid told me, he's like, I love working on sensory friendly days. You don't realize how loud these things ding all day. So they turn the sounds off of the cash register, so there's no noise. They turn the
Aw.
debit machine off, so there's like not off, but the sound off. They dim the lights, they turn the music off in the store, and they have no cart collecting in that hour.
Wow.
How
that's
amazing
great.
is that?
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
sister-
so
Yeah.
it's a start, right? Like you said, Kimmy,
Yeah.
it's a start.
Well, I was talking to my sister about this birthday party and everything, and she's like, well, the thing is that you could do this experience like once a month in your city. I'm like, yeah, if you get like 20 people on board doing this once a month, we'd have all kinds of experiences that we could take our families to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like reach out to organizations to not make it 1 hour, make it a day at the trampoline park where we
Yeah,
can
make
come
it a
at
day.
whatever
Yes.
whatever time works for us. Make it the entire day and just let us bring our kids at 4 p.m. because we have naps at certain times or we have to eat at
Or
certain
me
times.
at 9 a.m. because we go
Yeah.
to bed at 4 p.m.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're a
Whatever.
fickle bunch.
Yeah. Yes, we need the whole day so
Yeah.
we can stagger ourselves in to your facility.
I think really what it comes down to is like our kids deserve to have these opportunities.
Yeah.
Our
Yes.
kids deserve to be in the communities. I think us as parents need to also recognize, though, as much as our kids deserve this, that we need to take a step back when it's not working and it's not working
Yeah.
for the other children. And no,
Mhm.
this might be an experience that's better off having a separate experience because
Yeah.
it's not, I think
Yeah.
and if everybody can kind of look at both sides of the situation and look at
Mhm.
all the kids and do what's best for everybody. It's never going to be in every situation, obviously, but I think that is what it boils down to.
It's so much though, like after awareness is inclusion, after inclusion is equity or equality, equity, whichever you
Both.
prefer. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but there needs to be advocates. You need to speak up. You need to say why. Like people need to, we all have pages. That's what we have in common, like Facebook pages to tell our story. And I'm sure that it started because we needed our family to understand, our friends to understand, or we needed an outlet because we've been so isolated, or that we wanted to talk to anybody that isn't our family and we kept it secret from people, like just to have a creative space to do that. But it's so much more than that. Like it's every single story, it's every single facet, because Seeley's experience is different at 6 than it was at 5. Like we happen to be that level of cool where you have no baseline through a whole life. And it's hard to describe and it's hard to whatever. But if we were in a world where people weren't thinking like, oh my God, that kid's walking and talking and as a pacifier, but they saw that pacifier like a symbol that there's something going on, or like it doesn't need to be a symbol. Like it should be humanity, right? Like it should be humanity. You just give grace. But since there isn't a lot of that, whether you know or you don't know what's going on, like just thinking that there's something deeper. It's just a
mind your
lot.
business.
Mind your goddamn business.
Well, and if we're going to be honest, like if we didn't have kids with disabilities, we might not be zeroed into this.
I say
Right.
Might
that
not
all-
even realize people
say that all
Right.
the time.
just don't realize it's not
Right.
something that affects them and their children. It's not that they don't care. It's just that some people just don't even think of it. They're just not, they're not
We've
aware.
all probably had people from our lives prior to that are following our stories. Like, not that they found us because of autism, but rather they knew us and now see this.
Yeah.
I've had so many people say, like, Rachel, you've opened my eyes to this world I didn't understand. Like, every kid in the grocery store is now no longer some prick that I need to like get around quickly. I'm trying to look at the mom in the eye and see if her soul is tired.
Right.
I'm trying to like hold the baby if somebody needs some help because the other one just ran away. Like, I'm going to push your cart to the front of the grocery store because what's going on there? You just want to help people when you
I
know.
told Rachel yesterday when we were at Chuck E. Cheese. I got
Jen
swindled
whispers a
into
lot
that.
because she can't trigger her
Chuck E.
kid. If you're
Cheese for
listening
anyone
on
who-
the,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this little girl was flapping happy. I mean, she was just, and I said to Rachel, I just looked over at the mom and we had that nod, and her
Oh.
daughter loved the same thing that Kaya likes, which vibrate and rocks them all like they're on a rocket ship. And her little girl was just having the best time on this thing, and she was just stimming away, and it was awesome.
I love it.
We had a when we were just in Florida recently, the day that she wouldn't get out of the rental car, she ended up going swimming afterwards, like for like 5 hours in the pool. They had a beautiful pool there. And she was with my sister and my daughters, and I came down and there was a lady sitting there and she's like, "Can I ask you a question?" And my hackles are always like, "What?" You know, she's like, she's like, "Does your daughter have autism?" And I'm like, "Yep, she does." And she asked how old she was, and this lady
You're
had
still being an asshole? Yes, she does.
this lady was like, "Oh," she's like, "I knew it." She said, "I have 2 kids on this. I have 3 kids, 2 are on the spectrum." She was having a kid-free time for the first time ever without her kids. And she goes, "Oh yeah." She goes, "I was watching your daughter." She goes, "And I was watching the other people." She goes, "I saw some of them look at her." She goes, "But then they were nice." She's like, "I was just waiting. I was waiting for anybody to like say anything." You know, she's like ready, you know, complete
God bless
stranger.
her. She's
like
on her break and she's
she's,
still
like,
like
ready
ready
to,
to
like,
battle.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
like ready to like jump in at any moment. So it was just, I don't know, it was just so.
Oh my, I do that
so
every
nice.
time if I see a kid that's like
Yes.
on the spectrum or has any other thing where people might be judgy or mean. I'm like, all of a sudden, like, me and my husband at Target one time, and there was this girl, she was wearing headphones and she was like stimming and flapping, and we could just tell. We like look at her mom and like we're like nerdy, like we want to say something to the mom.
Yeah. We do that too.
Wave a puzzle piece.
We do that
keychain.
too.
Hey,
The mom's like in mode, like out in public mode, you know, where
Yeah.
I don't want to like interrupt her. I don't want to approach them if that's gonna like be hard for the daughter, blah blah. But like
Yeah.
we're standing in line near them, and I'm just like looking around, like, if anyone says anything, if this cashier says anything, I will.
exactly.
Yeah. Yes. It is so interesting how you get that. I just feel like we're tuned into it. And so you can tell like immediately.
And we're not only protective of our children, but other children.
Yes. Don't be
What's
mean.
that thing? When you know,
be-
you know.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
If-
I mean, yeah, we all know there's no look to autism. There's no specific
Right.
whatever. But listen, that little girl was flapping
There damn
happy.
sure
I mean,
is.
she was autistic. There was no question.
Yeah.
You
There's
know,
a
so-
behavioral look.
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
If you're trying to scan back to the beginning of a podcast while you're driving your kids to school in the car, know this is what the quote was. Diversity is having a seat at the table. Boop, boop. That's not in there.
Oh.
Inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice be heard.
Well, this has been great. I love this.
I can't
discussion.
wait to see the comments on this one. You
Yeah.
guys, like, come find us on Facebook. If you found us through Apple, find us on Facebook and come be a part of our conversation. Because, gosh, inclusion.
We want to hear about your inclusion. The basic takeaway is it can be anything. Just be nice. Let us also experience the world with you because we can also teach you things.
We're a
So
lot of fun.
we are so much fun. And we will also come mama bear if someone has something to say about your kids.
Yeah.
So we will check you next time for our next series.
Love it.
Good night.
Good
Night.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining the table for this episode on inclusion. If you are enjoying our podcast and wherever you're listening allows, please remember to rate and review us. To join in on the conversation, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can also email us at tablefor5podcast@gmail.com. Thank you for sitting with us. We can't wait to chat again, and we'll have a new series out very soon. Bye.